If you're one of the lucky ones who can afford a super sports car, the battle at the top is rife. And while Porsche's 911 Turbo has long been the go-to car for mixing performance and luxury, since 2007, Nissan's GT-R has been gunning for top dog. So, which one's best? Arguably, the look of the 911 hasn't really changed that much since Elvis wore blue suede shoes. However, this new 991 version is really fast. 0 to 100 in 3.2 seconds and a top speed of 315 kilometers an hour. And then there's Nissan's new GT-R Premium Edition.
And this claims a faster 0 to 100 time, and it also promises to be more mature and more civilized than it's ever been before.
You in there the whole time?
Yes. It also matches the Porsche for top speed and claims to get around the Nürburgring Nordschleife circuit faster than it.
So, best blend of supercar performance and grand touring luxury, let's hit the road.
Shotgun the GT-R.
Okay. Let's get one thing straight from the start. The 911 Turbo, it's not cheap. 366,500, and that's before you add Sport Chrono, which is an extra 10 grand on top, but that gives you some extra torque and sharper acceleration. Makes do with 383 kilowatts and 660 newton meters of torque. But that's far from the Porsche Turbo Summit. Beyond that, you can also get a Porsche Turbo S, which is faster and more powerful, and on top of that, you can option Sport Chrono as well.
Okay, so a $172,000 GT-R is not the cheapest Nissan you can buy. But for the price of that porker, you can have two of these and still have plenty of change left over to spend on tyres and fuel. This is more powerful than the Porsche 2 with 404 kilowatts, though even though its 3.8 litre twin turbo V6 is mounted up front like a proper car, it's actually down around 30 newton meters compared to that thing tucked into the back of the 911. Both cars are 2+2 coupes and both use tricky four-wheel drive systems to make sure that even on your first drive, it's entirely plausible that you won't die, which is good and should make this pretty interesting.
One of the big highlights of the Turbo, or any 911, is the driving position. It's simply superb, and the ergonomics, well, all the controls are exactly what you want. You think that hanging the engine out behind the rear axle line would really hamper the dynamics of this, but unlike 911s of old that used to want to spit you off into the scenery, engineers have really dialed that out of the car. If anything, it's just amazingly balanced. Bar a bit of tyre noise, it's an incredibly easy, comfortable car to drive. Fantastic grand tourer. I think if you're going to clock up a lot of Ks, it's probably the better car out of the two. They say that the Turbo is really the luxurious, overweight version of the 911, but you know what? You push this thing and it just feels lithe and engaging. Got to say, this PDK transmission, it's definitely one of the smoothest out there. Really intuitive in automatic mode and super sharp under manual mode.
There's one thing a GT-R is though, and that is fast, and this thing is fast. It's not quiet, and even in this premium trim with its heated leather seats, doing its best to make you think it's some sort of luxury car, the thing is just an absolute beast. You've got 3 different modes to play with for your transmission, your suspension and your traction control. And while there's an R mode or race, which is completely brutal, even in normal mode, there's no disguising what this car is and just how much of an animal it is. That said, on this particular road, it does feel quite big and quite heavy, and it doesn't love changing directions as much as I'd hoped it would. And the brakes as well just seem to reinforce the fact that this thing is a big, heavy car at its core. Put your foot down though, and it knows how to hustle out of a corner.
So that Datsun of yours manages to keep up after all.
That's cute, mate. You were actually holding me up. Anyway, I need to go in this, so let's do that.
Hang on, before you do anything, check this out.
What, from the passenger seat?
Yeah, mate.
Come on, lame. Well, it's pretty nice in here, isn't it?
Mate, the fit finish and materials are just fantastic in the Porsche, and it's classic Porsche too. The instrumentation and the driving position and ergonomics, man, it's just superb.
Okay, all right, you like it, but it does look a little bit like a base Carrera, doesn't it?
It is. It's a little bit simple. Infotainment system, you know, a little bit chintzy, I think.
Well, I want to show you something in that GTR because it's got stuff that this Porsche doesn't have. All right, so it might not be quite as plush as that Porsche, but this thing has gauges, pages of gauges. That's pretty cool.
Trans oil pressure. Why do I want to look at that? I want to look out in the street.
Whatever,
And
man.
anyway, what's with that map?
Yeah, okay, the display is a little bit basic and the screen's kind of pinched from an old Nissan Dualis, but that's not what this car's about. It's about going fast and you need to drive it, and I'm driving that.
Let's do it.
It's good. Damn it, it's really good. It's easily nicer and more refined than the GTR, but annoyingly, in that classic Germanic way, it also manages to just stupendously pack on numbers. It's nowhere near as manic as the GTR. The GTR is kind of like driving an explosion, but the Porsche is agile and manageable, and it brakes well and changes directions well. And you just get the sense that you could drive it twice as fast while concentrating half as much.
So I've just gotten out of the Porsche and now I'm in the GTR. And while the Porsche sort of has this habit of shrinking around you as you push on, the GTR, well, doesn't. What's strange is that even with the four-wheel steering system and the torque vectoring, the Porsche really feels quite organic. Whereas the GTR, it's not video game-like, but it just lacks the level of connection that the Porsche does. Nissan's claiming the win in acceleration with 2.7 seconds 0 to 100, but on a roll, on a country road, I don't know. I think the Porsche is a little bit quicker. So Dave, what do you reckon?
Yeah, look mate, very interesting, and two very different cars.
Mate, they are very different.
For me, the GTR is just a little bit too manic, I reckon. And look, I know they've put leather seats in it and it's got a comfort mode, but you can't hide that this thing's just a total animal. Whereas the Porsche is both fast and friendly. You can drive it quick, wet, dry, it doesn't really care. And I think that's pretty telling.
Absolutely. The GTR on some of Victoria's finest driving roads, it's a fantastic car, but the Porsche is just a little bit quicker point to point.
I agree.
And if you're going to jump in and drive to Sydney, which one are you going to choose?
Yeah, I know where you're heading, and I agree as well. But some people will like the fact that that's a little bit psychotic. And let's not forget, for the price of that, you could buy one of these and still have 180 grand left over to renovate your house or go on a holiday or buy a couple of race cars.
I'd get something big, German, 7 cup holders, and still have change for a Ducati.
Yeah, sure, mate. Okay, well, you spend it on whatever you like. But either way, I think we might have our answer.
So we came here today to find out which of these two is the better super sports car. And while the GTR is a fantastic contender, the 911 Turbo is still the king.
Stay tuned for a dedicated performance test on these two cars, and in the meantime, remember to subscribe to caradvice.com.au for all the latest news, reviews and comparison tests of what could very well be your next new car.